Today I'm going to teach you how to remove the injectors as well as the injector cups from your Mack MP7. We won't need any special tools to remove the injectors, but for the injector cups, we will. Welcome back to Ratchet and Frank TV. The first thing that I want to do, now that we have the rocker shaft lifted off of the engine, I want to take a really good look at all these valve bridges and make sure none of them have obvious damage on them. We also want to make sure that they were all facing the right direction before we take them off ourselves. This is an early model MP7, so both the intake and the exhaust valve bridges have that notch in the bottom of them. That notch will always face the same direction that I'm facing. Now we could go ahead and remove the injector yoke bolts. These yoke bolts are non-reusable. You have to replace them if you're going to replace the injectors, and that is not an option. These are Delphi unit injectors, and the design behind them is actually quite cool. The injectors are obviously placed vertically at the center of each cylinder between the 4 valves, held in place by the yoke, and the lower part of the injector is held against the coolant jacket inside of the injector cup. And although these injectors may look simple, they're actually quite complex in their design and function. I'm going to make another video entirely detailing this. You can gently pry upward on one of the valve springs with a large screwdriver to pop the injector upwards. 90% of the time this will work. If it does not work, you're going to need to get yourself the injector extractor tool, which is basically a slide hammer that attaches onto the spring of the injector. And I cannot stress this enough, if the thing does not want to come out, do not force it with all your might, prying downwards on one of those valve springs. You will bend a valve stem. The yokes on the injectors can only be removed and installed in place on the injector, and what I mean by that is you physically can't pull the yoke up off the injector while the injector is still down inside the head. You just won't have enough clearance. It's that simple. And this is the same thing for installation. The yoke has to be seated on the injector before you drop it inside the head. I have another video coming out here shortly detailing the inspection of these injectors. It'll also show a couple of really good examples of poorly performing injectors or injectors that have completely failed. Now, removing the injector cups is a bit more of a complex procedure, and we're actually going to require a special tool in order to do this. There's actually quite a few versions of this tool, but you should only ever use one, which is this one. I'm going to provide a link where you can get something very similar to this in the description. It's also important you know this procedure is for stainless steel cups, and to remove brass cups you'll need a different tool, and I totally would not use this tool to remove brass cups. That's because you risk breaking the tip of the cup off inside the head, and depending on your mechanical experience, that may or may not be a catastrophic issue. The tool consists of a few major parts, but the most two important are the outer sleeve and the inner sleeve. The outer sleeve has ears that sit on the base of the cylinder head for support, and the inner sleeve has an expanding bit that gets lowered down through the cup bore and inside of the injector cup, where it expands inside of the injector cup, and then you could pull the entire bit with the injector cup attached through the outer sleeve up and out of the cylinder head. You can see that lower wrench is a ratcheting wrench. That'll save you a huge amount of time when you're doing this. I like gear wrench. Eventually, you'll feel the relief of tension from the tool, then you could pull the cup with the tool directly out of the cylinder head. To remove the cup from the bit, simply back the inner rod off about a quarter of a turn while squeezing the cup in your palm. While technically the expanding bit is made up of 4 pieces, we'll talk in terms of 2 because it's easier. The first piece, that inner triangle, needs to be completely free from the second piece, that outer chuck that it's going to expand, and the entire sleeve needs to drop completely down into the injector bore or you're not going to get a good bite on the cup. The tool should not look like this when you drop it into the bore, and it should not look like this. You should be able to feel the inner sleeve fall into the cup as you drop the entire tool into the bore, and it should connect with the cup within the first few turns of the collar. As you rotate the collar, the larger threaded rod forces the smaller threaded rod with the first triangle piece higher into the inner sleeve, and then those 3 pieces that are on that second chuck piece are expanded in the inner cup walls. This is the action that does the grabbing, which actually pulls the cup out of the head. If you watch closely, you'll notice I hold the top of the rod with my socket and ratchet. This is because once you achieve the initial bite between the cup and the tool, you don't want to go any tighter than that, as you're going to have a super difficult time removing the cup from the tool. If this happens to you, take the tool over to the vise, put the cup end of the tool inside the vise, and unlock the rod as normal. Before I go any further, I'd like to give a quick shout out to our sponsor for the first season of Down the Block and Back. Ridemore Heavy Duty Truck Parts is one of the largest used heavy duty demanufacturing facilities specializing in quality used parts for commercial trucks class 7 and 8. And if your market is aftermarket, I have good news for you. Ridemore also stocks a whole plethora of aftermarket parts that are just as good as OEM quality, things like radiators, charge air coolers, rebuild kits, water pumps, flywheel housings, EGR coolers, anything in between. Ridemore pretty much will have you covered. If you're interested, check out their inventory over at ridemore.com or call them directly at 978-342-1100. We only have a few injector cups left to do, so we'll drop the tool in, get the bite, and then pull them out. The injectors I pulled out of this engine were actually in really good condition, all things considered, but if you want to learn how to inspect your own diesel fuel injectors, go ahead and follow my channel, as well as turn on post notifications because I'll be releasing another video here shortly detailing how you could inspect your own Type E3 Delphi injectors. If you've made it this far, you've earned my personal commendation. Thank you so much for your support, and I will see you next time on Ratchet and Frank TV.